The rain-slicked streets of New York's Upper West Side seemed almost too fitting on the morning of January 25, 1899, when Belmont DeForest Bogart and his wife Maud welcomed their first child into the world. They named him Humphrey DeForest Bogart, a name that would eventually become synonymous with a certain kind of American masculinity, world-weary, cynical, yet possessing an unshakable moral core beneath the tough exterior. Young Humphrey grew up in privilege. His father was a successful surgeon, his mother a commercial illustrator who had once studied under James McNeill Whistler. The family lived comfortably, and Humphrey attended the prestigious Trinity School before enrolling at Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts. But the path laid out for him, likely following his father into medicine, held no appeal. He was expelled from Phillips, reportedly for throwing the headmaster into Rabbit Pond, though the details remain murky. What is clear is that instead of Yale, Bogart found himself joining the Navy during World War I. It was in the Navy that Bogart acquired one of his most distinctive features. While escorting a prisoner, he was struck in the mouth, resulting in a partially paralyzed upper lip and a slight lisp. The injury that might have derailed another actor's career became part of Bogart's signature presence. That slight impediment in speech somehow made his tough guy delivery all the more compelling, all the more authentic. After the war, Bogart drifted into acting almost by accident. He needed work, and a family friend helped him find employment as a stage manager and minor actor. Throughout the 1920s, he toiled in Broadway productions, often playing wealthy young men in drawing-room comedies, roles utterly at odds with the persona he would later inhabit. Critics were unkind. Alexander Woollcott famously wrote that Bogart's performance was what is usually and mercifully described as inadequate. But Bogart persisted, driven perhaps by necessity as much as ambition. Hollywood called in 1930, but his early film career was equally unpromising. He bounced between New York theater and Hollywood, unable to gain traction in either. He was typed as a pretty boy, a romantic lead, roles that didn't suit his increasingly lived-in face and his natural inclination toward darker, more complex characters. His personal life was equally turbulent. Marriages began and ended, drinking became a problem, and by his mid-30s, Bogart seemed destined for obscurity. Then came 1936 and The Petrified Forest. Bogart had played the role of Duke Manty, a desperate gangster, on Broadway. And when Warner Brothers bought the film rights, Leslie Howard insisted Bogart reprise the role. It was a break, but not quite the breakthrough. Warner Brothers signed him, but relegated him to B-movies and supporting roles as gangsters, thugs, and criminals. Between 1936 and 1940, Bogart appeared in dozens of forgettable films, often dying before the final reel. He was reliable, professional, but seemingly destined to remain a character actor. Everything changed with High Sierra in 1941, where Bogart finally received top billing playing Roy Earle, an aging gangster seeking redemption. Director Raoul Walsh and screenwriter John Huston saw something in Bogart that others had missed, a vulnerability beneath the toughness, a romanticism beneath the cynicism. Later that same year came The Maltese Falcon, with Huston making his directorial debut and Bogart playing Sam Spade. The film was a sensation, and suddenly, at 41 years old, Humphrey Bogart was a star. What followed was a remarkable run of iconic performances. Casablanca in 1942 made him a legend. As Rick Blaine, the disillusioned nightclub owner who finds his principles again in wartime Morocco, Bogart embodied something essential about American idealism: battered but not broken, cynical but capable of sacrifice. The film's enduring popularity has made certain moments. Here's looking at you, kid. We'll always have Paris. Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, part of our cultural vocabulary. During the production of To Have and Have Not in 1944, the 44-year-old Bogart met 19-year-old Lauren Bacall. Their on-screen chemistry was electric, their off-screen romance equally compelling. They married in 1945, and despite the age difference and Bogart's checkered romantic history, this marriage endured. Bacall brought stability, Bogart found something he'd been searching for throughout his turbulent life. The post-war years saw Bogart continue to challenge himself. The Treasure of the Sierra Madre showcased his willingness to play against type as the paranoid, greedy Fred C. Dobbs. In A Lonely Place presented him as a volatile screenwriter suspected of murder, perhaps his most psychologically complex performance. The African Queen, in 1951, opposite Katharine Hepburn, showed his range in a more adventurous, even comedic role, earning him his only Academy Award for Best Actor. By the mid-1950s, Bogart had become more than just a star. He was an institution. He and Bacall, along with friends like Frank Sinatra, David Niven, and Judy Garland, formed the legendary Rat Pack, socializing at restaurants and clubs, embodying a certain sophisticated, hard-drinking Hollywood lifestyle. But time was running out. In 1956, Bogart was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, likely the result of decades of heavy smoking and drinking. He faced his illness with characteristic stoicism, even sardonic humor. When asked how he was feeling, he reportedly replied, "I should never have switched from scotch to martinis." He died on January 14, 1957, at age 57, with Bacall at his side. Humphrey Bogart left behind not just films, but an archetype. He showed that heroes didn't need to be conventionally handsome or optimistic. They could be flawed, weary, disillusioned, and still, when it mattered, they would do the right thing. In an industry built on illusion, Bogart projected something that felt real,